This is your news tonight. The headlines. Thumbs up from the European Commission. Ukraine should be given EU candidate status, Ursula von der Leyen says, adding that it's now in Kiev's hands. President Vladimir Putin speaks at the Economic Forum in St. Petersburg, calling Western sanctions reckless and insane, and defending the Russian aggression in Ukraine. The UK government signs off on the extradition of Julian Assange to the US, where he's facing espionage charges. But the WikiLeaks team is refusing to give up, saying it's the beginning of a new legal battle.
And are the recent fires at food processing plants in the US really an attempt to create a national food crisis? We'll take a closer look here in theCUBE.
Good evening, welcome to the program. I'm Per Bergfors Nyberg. The European Commission has recommended candidate status for Ukraine in a symbolic show of support in the war-torn country's quest to join the bloc. Sporting a yellow and blue outfit, EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen told officials on Friday that Ukraine and neighboring Moldova should be welcomed as candidate countries. The move could kickstart a lengthy process towards full EU membership, which could take years. It comes just a day after top EU leaders offered their backing to Ukraine's EU accession during a trip to its capital. Member states will decide next week whether to grant the country's candidate status, with unanimous agreement required. Von der Leyen says that Ukraine has already proved its European worth.
In the view of the Commission, Ukraine has clearly demonstrated the country's aspiration and the country's determination to live up to European values and standards. And we all know that Ukrainians are ready to die for the European perspective. We want them to live with us the European dream.
Now let's head to Brussels and bring in our correspondent Maeve McMahon. Maeve, so some strong words there from Ursula von der Leyen, saying now that she wants the Ukrainians to live the European dream. What's been the reaction there in Brussels?
Well, as you can imagine, among Ukrainians who are based here in Brussels, the reaction has been very positive. I'm standing here now with Anna, Martha and Oksana, ladies that I've met since the Russian invasion back on the 24th of February. Ladies who've been organising the demonstrations here, the pro-Ukrainian demonstrations and anti-Russia demonstrations. So let's bring them in and get their initial reaction to that announcement today from the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. I guess that this is a huge morale boost. Are you afraid that the EU won't follow through, Anna?
Indeed, we are very happy. We believe it's a historic decision for Ukraine, because today Ukraine is fighting not only for its independence and freedom, but also for our European future, for the European values. And getting the candidacy status would be a huge boost in morale for Ukraine.
And Martha, what are people saying back home, your friends and family back in Ukraine?
People are, of course, fighting for European values. They expect to have the candidacy status. They do not even have a slight doubt that we will get it. Of course, they ask us. They all the time are in contact with us, asking what is now decision. Is there anything changing? We are preparing ourselves for different demonstrations. Like there was a human chain back a few days ago near the Berlemont building, like here, 1,000 people. And there are other demonstrations that we are making just to raise awareness and to let the leaders hear that civil society is expecting that we will be part of European family one day, and this is the first step.
This is the first step. Oksana, are you confident that EU member states will give it the green light next week?
We do our best to support this positive decision for Ukraine. We do a really lot of work with all of the permanent representatives here in Brussels. We try to lobby the best interests for Ukraine. So we are doing our best for our people back there in Ukraine, in occupied territories, so they know that we keep fighting for them.
Okay, Anna, Martha and Oksana, thank you so much. Really interesting to hear the perspective there from Ukrainians based here in Brussels, putting pressure on the European institutions since that invasion, and even since 2014, actually, since the Maidan revolution.
Well, Maeve, some happy voices there behind you, but of course this process of becoming an actual member of the EU can be quite a long one. For Albania, it took 5 years to get candidate status. North Macedonia, that country has been a candidate since 2005 and is still waiting to open membership talks. How fast is it going to go for Ukraine?
Well, it's not going to be a fast process at all. It's not just going to happen overnight. In fact, negotiations on the reforms won't even start. The official accession talks won't even start, even if this candidate status is granted at that EU summit next week. That's why we heard today from Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, saying the process will be very fluid. There will be bumps. It could go forward. It could go backwards. And as you say, it could take a long time, as we've seen with other countries who are trying to get inside the bloc. And what happens is, once this procedure is formalised, then this chapter, which is called the Copenhagen Criteria, which consists of 35 different chapters, tricky, difficult chapters on all areas of EU reform and law, need to be dealt with and need to be signed off upon. And then you need to get the green light on an accession treaty from not just the EU member states, but then from Ukraine itself. So these girls behind me, they are in their late 20s, early 30s, and believe that they could be into their 50s before they officially see themselves as a member of the EU, with their president sitting around that council table.
All right, long journey ahead. Thank you so much, May McMahon, live for us in Brussels. And following the visit by EU leaders on Thursday, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson made a surprise trip to Kiev for talks with Ukraine's President Zelensky. It's Johnson's second outing to the country since the war broke out. Zelensky welcomed the PM's visit, saying Great Britain's support for Ukraine is firm and resolute. Elsewhere in Ukraine, at least 2 people have been killed and many more injured in a Russian missile strike in the southern city of Mykolaiv. According to the city's governor, 4 residential buildings were destroyed. French network operator GRT Gas announced today that they hadn't received any Russian gas for the last 2 days. The announcement comes as Gazprom, Russia's state energy company, said it was cutting supplies to Germany by 40%. Similarly, Italian energy giant Eni said that Gazprom would reduce supplies by 50%. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said reductions in supply were not premeditated, but related to maintenance issues. However, the head of Gazprom puts the blame on the West, saying, "Our product, our rules." Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has denounced the West for attempting to impose its will on sovereign nations. Speaking at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, Putin declared that the world has fundamentally changed and that the era of unipolar world is over.
The United States, having declared victory in the Cold War, declared itself the messenger of God on earth, who has no responsibilities, but only interests, and those interests are declared sacred. They do not seem to notice that over the past decades, new powerful centres have been formed on the planet and are declaring themselves louder and louder. Each of them develops its own political systems and public institutions, implements its own models of economic growth, and of course has the right to protect them, to ensure national sovereignty.
And our correspondent Galina Polonska joins me now live. Galina, what did Vladimir Putin have to say now that the EU is further opening the door for Ukraine on its path towards EU membership?
Hello, Per. Well, Vladimir Putin said that the EU is not a military political bloc, unlike NATO, and that Russia has nothing against such a perspective opening for Ukraine. He said that it was a sovereign decision of the EU to decide whether it wants this country, Ukraine, to join this economic alliance, and said that Russia has no objections against such a decision. He also said that if this happens, the EU would most probably provide financial support for the daily life in Ukraine, but said that he doubts that it would help to restore its critical infrastructures, as he doubts that the EU could create competitors. Vladimir Putin also spoke about the future of of the EU in itself, and said that he is persuaded that it will face a change of the elites in the future, as people right now are suffering from sanctions in the EU, from sanctions imposed on Russia, and he said that populist mood will rise surely, and also he said that the EU has lost its political sovereignty.
And Galina, he also defended his decision to invade Ukraine, or as he puts it, this special military operation in Ukraine. But was there any kind of recognition of the immense human cost, those thousands of civilians who've now died in this war?
Not a single word, Per. Vladimir Putin, however, said that fighting is always a tragedy, but repeated once again that Russia did not have a choice, that it was dragged to this line, and promised once again that Russia will attain its goals in Ukraine. And those words were met with a massive applause in the hall of the Economic Forum in St. Petersburg. Vladimir Putin was also asked about a danger of the beginning of the Third World War, and he said that this rhetoric comes from the Western leaders, that Russia just responds to their comments, and that there is no threat coming from Russia. However, he stressed that everyone knows what Russia disposes, what means Russia disposes, and what would be its answer in case of a danger. And there was also another very interesting question about Russia's warnings to attack the decision-making centers in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin said that he did not want to give details, and said that this would mean very tough actions from the Russian side, but he stressed that it is up to Ukraine and the West to draw their own conclusions with what they may collide if they cross the red lines.
Galina Polonska live for us. Thank you so much, Galina. Britain has given the green light to extradite Julian Assange to the US, where he will face trial over the publication of secret military files. The move could bring the WikiLeaks founder's long-running legal saga closer to a conclusion, and comes after a UK court issued a formal order clearing Assange removal in April. He's wanted by US authorities on 18 counts, including a spying charge. His supporters have decried the decision, claiming it's a violation of media freedom and free speech. Now let's head to London and speak to our reporter Vincent McAviney, who joins us now live from London. Vincent, so why did the UK government approve this extradition now?
Well, Julian Assange's presence in the United Kingdom has been a problem for British governments for over 10 years now. He has worked his way through the British legal system. He was first wanted in connection with a case in Sweden that was subsequently dropped, but he breached bail conditions here in the UK. He then fled inside the Ecuadorian embassy. He stayed there for a number of years until eventually the Ecuadorians decided they'd had enough of him, gave him up. He was then arrested by Britain, and he spent the last couple of years in Belmarsh prison in South London. And whilst he was in a custodial sentence for that breach of bail conditions, these charges from the US came in. Now, Britain has not wanted Julian Assange in this country, essentially. It's also a bit of a headache for them with the Americans. The UK is obviously very closely aligned. We were also part of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and both countries were embarrassed by the revelations that came out in those leaks. And so Britain has, over the past 2 years, sought reassurances from the US. It has a treaty where it can extradite people, but it has to have the reassurance that the person will not face any kind of torture and will not face a capital sentence, the death punishment. Then they can be extradited. So Julian Assange was given a full and fair legal proceeding here in the UK. He went all the way up to the Supreme Court. He lost his case repeatedly, and he is now, on the decision of the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, going to America because she has had the reassurances of that key condition, that he will not face the death penalty. And so she's within her right now, under British law, to send him to America.
So is this it? Is he going on a plane to the US now?
Well, Julian Assange has 14 days to appeal. He could appeal to the ECHR, the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. But a decade ago, in another case, that court found that it was all right for Britain to extradite people under its treaty agreement with the United States. It was a case on different facts. It might get reviewed differently now, but there is precedent for it. So essentially, Julian Assange has sort of run down the clock now in the UK, and at any point, essentially, within the next 14 days, it does seem he could be put on a flight and flown to the US if that's what the Home Secretary decides is the right course of action.
Vincent McAviney live for us from London. Thank you, Vincent. Now, recent fires across the United States at food processing plants has sparked numerous conspiracy theories that someone might actually be starting them intentionally to create a national food shortage. Sophia in the Cube has more on this. Sophia?
Yes, Per, we've been seeing these sorts of posts circulating all over social media. In it, they claim that there has been an increase in fires at food processing plants in the U.S. in order to starve the population. Now, even politicians are getting involved, such as Marjorie Taylor Greene, that insinuated on Twitter that maybe these incidents were not that accidental. And even on Facebook, we've been seeing these sorts of posts that suggest that maybe even Bill Gates is behind all of this. So here at theCUBE, we decided to fact-check these claims, and we found no evidence that any of these fires were premeditated in order to cause some sort of national food shortage. And as you can see, most of these fires, like this one in Maine, were accidental. Only 3 fires are still currently undergoing investigation. But has there really been an alarming increase? Let's take a look at the numbers. Let's start with this report from 2019 by the USDA, that's the United States Department of Agriculture. In it, it says that the US has over 36,000 plants for food processing plants. And according to the National Fire Protection Association, so that's the NFPA, the annual average amount of fires between 2015 and 2019 in food processing plants was over 5,000. So as you can see, it is quite a common occurrence. And in the first 4 months of 2022, there have been approximately 20 fires at food plants, according to an NFPA spokesperson who gave an interview to factcheck.org. So as you can see, these numbers are not really that alarmingly high. And also, most of these plants were only temporarily shut down. So this wouldn't cause some sort of national food crisis. And Per, the USDA even said on its website that there are currently no food shortages or disruptions in the United States.
All right, Sophia in the Cube, thank you so much. The European Broadcasting Union has announced that Ukraine cannot host Eurovision next year. The show's organizers say next year's event won't go ahead in the winning country because of Russia's ongoing war, but it could be held in the runner-up nation, the UK. The BBC is now in talks with the European Broadcasting Union, but reports say Ukraine's culture minister is demanding further talks on the matter, posting to Telegram that the country is still prepared to host the event. The Japanese Supreme Court has ruled that the government is absolved of any and all responsibility for the Fukushima nuclear disaster. In 2011, a tsunami triggered by an earthquake hit the power plant, creating the worst nuclear disaster since Chernobyl. Today's ruling means that the operator of the plant, the Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings, is liable for close to 10 million euros in compensation for up to 3,700 plaintiffs. And FIFA has announced the host cities for the 2026 World Cup, which will take place across Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Mexico City's Azteca Stadium will be the first venue to have hosted 3 World Cups, following its central role in the 1970 and the 1986 finals. Other selected cities include Los Angeles, Dallas, and Philadelphia, while Vancouver and Toronto will be the venues as Canada hosts its first ever Men's World Cup finals. Forecasters have warned that temperatures are set to hit 40 degrees Celsius in parts of Europe this weekend, as a heat wave has people across the continent trying to escape the sun. Anka Ula has the story.
Scorching heat has sent Europeans across the continent scrambling for shade and water, as an unusually early heat wave spread across several countries. Temperatures blew past historical records for this time of the year, hitting over 40 degrees Celsius in some places.
We're barely bearing the heat. It's terrible. I drink a lot of water. We go back to the apartment and switch on the air conditioning.
The heat wave is said to continue to spread over the weekend, with temperatures higher than 30 degrees Celsius expected in most of Western and Central Europe. Meteorologists say these temperatures are normally recorded in July and August. French climate scientists say this is the earliest heat wave France has seen since 1947, saying it's a direct consequence of climate change, and swimming pools are in high demand.
There are between 800 and 1,000 people per day. It's huge compared to the usual days when there are a few clouds.
The heat could even be deadly, especially for elderly people who are particularly vulnerable. France has activated its highest alert level in more than a dozen regions. Across Europe, hydration is key.
This is the second water bottle in half an hour. It's very hot, so, as you say on TV, we must drink a lot of water.
For older people, it's quite hard.
In northern Italy, the extreme heat is adding to a severe drought. Some parts of the Po River, the country's largest, have run dry. Anka Ula, Euronews.